Welcome to Subramani. One question which I keep getting asked is how much money do I need for retirement? And I've tried answering this in various methods, saying you need 30 times your annual expenses or 40 times your annual expenses, which means you should know what will be your annual expenses at the age of 60. The other thing is to say you need $1 million plus a house without any debt. So that is the US methodology, and I think we can stick to the India also to that US methodology, simply because there they assume there will be social security. Here we assume there will be no social security. Social security comes to, for a couple, it comes to approximately $3,000 a month, which is very good money even by US standards, which many people live with just slightly drawing from their own accumulation, right? So but here I'm going to talk about it a little differently, because I've been talking a little about how to create a portfolio for your retirement, which means you have to create a portfolio which will give you a yield, which will be sufficient for you to meet your expenses, on the assumption that the yield, that the dividend will increase at a rate which is greater than inflation, which means that portfolio value which is required. For example, if you need 5 lakhs per annum at the age of 60, and assuming that 2% is the dividend yield that you get, then you need something like 2.5 crores worth of equity. 2.5 crores worth of equity will create a 2% dividend yield, which is 5 lakhs. This looks good. I think it looks perfect. However, the problem is, how is your portfolio divided? If this dividend is coming from one company, or a big portion is coming from one company or two companies or maybe three companies, but you have totally some 20 or 30 dividend yield stocks, where the returns which you are getting is very skewed, favoring a few good big companies or industries. For example, if you have an NBFC in which you are getting 3% return and your still overall percentage is 2, it is because there is something else which is equal weight, which is 1, which is bringing it down to 2%. Now you have to consider things like what happens if that company were to reduce dividend or were not to pay any dividend at all. Take the year 2021. Because of this pandemic in 2020, there is a good chance that many companies will prune the dividend, if not completely do away with the dividend. What do you do in those times? Because you may not feel very great withdrawing money from your portfolio, if assuming that your portfolio has been beaten down and the dividends are not there. During such times, during such difficult times, you will wonder whether the equity only and dividend yield strategy for retirement, is that working? The answer is yes, it will work, but you will have to dip into your equity portfolio. Now that's not too bad, because considering that you have a 2.5 crore portfolio, taking 5 lakhs out of that will not really matter. That is again just the amount which you would have got as dividend. However, you will be now scared, saying, if it happens like this every year, that is how the human mind is. The human mind will suddenly start drawing patterns and say, what happens if there is a COVID attack every year and companies don't pay dividend? What happens to the biggest company in which we have invested, which doesn't pay dividend for the next 3 years, right? So these are all things which worry us and which will make us very nervous. During such period, you have to have a bucket in which you have liquid and ultra short and savings bank account, bank FDs. You have no escape. During such times when you think there will be no dividend coming for whatever reasons, you have to have, so you need 5 lakhs per year. Suppose you had 20 lakhs kept in a liquid or a ultra short bond fund. The advantage is you can withdraw from that during such bad times. This will bring us to another question: what is happening to the dividend if you are not going to consume it? The question is not that. The question is you will withdraw from the ultra short bond fund only as much as you need to meet the dividend shortfall. So it is not that because of the COVID thing you will go and withdraw 5 lakhs from your liquid or ultra short bond fund. You don't need to do it. So you might just sit tight and use a little bit from there, assuming that the dividends get reduced from 5 lakhs to say 4 lakhs. Then how much you're going to dip into your ultra short bond fund is just 1 lakh, not the full 5 lakhs. So therefore having a reserve, especially in debt and not very violently fluctuating like an ultra short bond fund with a short duration, that would be a good place to leave your money and touch it only when you have a deficit happening in your dividends. So going back to the question, how much money do you need? You need only 2.5 crores if your requirements is 5 lakhs. That is obviously from the yield of 2%. However, if you think the yield will fall further and or secondly that the companies may, the dividends may fluctuate. When I am assuming 2%, I am assuming 2% of the whole portfolio, whole equity portfolio. However, it's never a 2% straight theory. It is there is something at 4%, something at 5%, something at 3%, and something at 1%, and something which is skip dividend. All these would be there in your portfolio because it's impossible to create a portfolio for 30, 40, 50 years where you can predict any of these things. None of this you can predict, right? So the fact that you can't predict and the fact that the dividends are not guaranteed. It's very important to know that dividends are not guaranteed and dividends are in the currency in which you have invested, right? So because of fluctuations, currency changes, etc., which can happen, you need to build some extra cushion. So therefore, our fervent plea has always been $1 million plus house and